The Batman. Probably one of the most well-known fiction characters of all time, and my personal favorite superhero. There are just so many iterations of the character that are so different and have their own unique voices that tell all these different stories. There's probably one out there for everybody. And in this video, I want to talk about one of my favorite versions of the character. Hi. The Batman has probably been one of the biggest constants in my life. As sad as that might sound, I've loved this character for as long as I can remember, and I have such a genuine connection with multiple iterations. You know, some of my favorite pieces of media probably ever. Batman Forever holds a special place in my heart. Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and the Batman films are all incredible. The animated series is pure art and has some of my favorite stories ever. The Brave and the Bold is pure, unapologetic Batman, and I love it. The 60s show, the Lego movie. Even more recently, I watched Beware the Batman, and that's become one I really enjoy. I love them all, but there is one that kind of goes unnoticed, and to me feels left out in the conversation a lot of times when it comes to all these Batman shows, which is a shame because I do think it's one of the best ones that we've ever gotten. If you don't know what I'm talking about The Batman, the animated cartoon that ran from 2004 to 2007 on the Kids WB network. It's different, really different, but I love it. And I want to spend some time talking about it today for those who haven't seen the show or for those who love the show and want to hear somebody else talk about it. And if you want me to talk about the show again in the future, I would love to, so just let me know in the comments below because it really is a fascinating show. But first, please go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot and just shows me that you guys are still enjoying the videos I'm making. I don't want to waste any more of your time. Let's talk about The Batman. So the first thing I want to talk about in The Batman is, well, the Batman, Bruce Wayne. This show shows us a different view on Bruce, a younger, more optimistic version that we don't get to see very often. Probably inspired by the Dick Grayson runs as Batman. Even in his design, he's much slimmer and tall, and he's smooth in his movement. That's another thing I love about the show is how slick and fluid this Batman is. He really is more full of life than any other Batman we've seen before. He has some of the coolest gadgets as well. Like, look at that, and that. It's just so cool. And the Batmobile is a literal sports car before they changed it in the later seasons. It's all so Batman, but also not, and unique and different. This unique take on Batman was obviously due to the show having the impossible job of following up the animated series, which to many was the perfect Batman. This one had to do things differently to stand out, and in one way that they did that was definitely the villains. The villains in this show are easily the biggest point of contention with people. I feel like most people either love them or hate them, and for the most part, I love them. There's a few misses in here, but for the most part, this show has some really cool interpretations of a lot of these Batman rogues. Starting with the Joker, he appears a lot, especially early in the show, which makes sense because like most of the villains in his first appearance, Batman's never dealt with him before, and he is 100% the rival for Batman in the show, and they set that up early. The design is something different, for sure. The voice is actually one of my favorites for the Joker. I really enjoy the voice acting.
What did you do to him?
Just some laughing gas, Drag. Don't tell me you're not an inmate.
I also do like the long sleeves and the longer hair. The red eyes are terrifying and a choice. He's also barefoot, which was a choice. Definitely nightmare fuel of a character. Speaking of nightmare fuel, this show's versions of Ragdoll and Man-Bat also terrified me as a kid. The Riddler is another really interesting character in this show and another change design-wise. I do really like it. I actually like his design, and I also really enjoy his character. He's in some of my favorite episodes of the whole show, especially later on in the later seasons. He's easily one of my favorite villains the show ever touched. Then there's Clayface. The show did Clayface pretty differently, actually making him Ethan Bennett, the detective friend of Bruce Wayne. He actually was transformed into Clayface by the Joker in season 1 penultimate episode. So they really do an interesting thing where we've had a whole season to get to know Ethan, so we really sympathize with Clayface a lot more than we usually would. The design is also really cool in my opinion. There's a lot of other cool interpretations throughout the show, like Catwoman, the Penguin, Black Mask is really cool in this one. Killer Croc has a really cool episode when the city floods in season 2. Firefly is really cool in this show, and as a kid, Firefly was actually one of my favorite Batman rogues because of this show. But one villain I do want to touch on because I've been so positive so far is Mr. Freeze. As a kid, I thought this was the coolest Mr. Freeze design maybe ever, and I still stand by that. Him shooting the ice from his arms is awesome, okay? But even as a kid, I watched the Batman Sub-Zero movie, and I knew this version was subpar in comparison. He was missing all of the motivation that his wife Nora brings and all of the depth of that character, really. And the show just turned him into Batman Rogue number 43 that wants to rob a bank for some reason. And that's kind of all he is in this show, which is super disappointing. Like, he's pretty much just a vessel to get Batman into that really cool white suit, which is really cool. This show just looks so good. I would honestly say there's more style and character here than just about any other Batman show we've ever gotten, which leads me into my favorite episodes. I feel like season 2 is a lot stronger than season 1, but I haven't watched it in a long time. I only watched the first season for this video, but from later seasons I do really like the Laughing Bat episode, the Swamped episode, Fire and Ice. Riddled might be my favorite of the whole show. I just love all of those episodes. But for season 1, I would have to say my top 5 would be Bat in the Belfry, which is the premiere. Rubber Face of Comedy and Clayface Tragedy are great. They are the 2-part finale for season 1, really. And then I also really enjoy The Big Heat. And then I would say for my number 5, Traction, which is the Bane episode. Like I said, I feel like from memory, season 2 and 3 are the strongest of the show, but there's really no misses. Even here in season 1, all of these episodes were a ton of fun to watch. I also love that while the show is pretty episodic for the most part, it does have an overarching storyline that does slowly unfold. As this is a younger Batman, a lot of season 1 is spent on the detectives searching for Batman, or Batman having to work outside of the law, and while he's taking down the villain, he's also being hunted by the police at the same time. And it's a lot of fun, and slowly throughout the series, especially in the second season from what I remember, Batman becomes pretty well known as a good guy before the GCPD decides to trust him. And speaking of the GCPD, the show actually created 3 original characters that all work as our reoccurring cast inside the police station. Detective Ethan Bennett, his partner Ellen Yen, and the police chief Angel Rojas. All 3 characters are pretty good in my opinion. Rojas obviously feels like a stand-in for Detective Bullock, but also is a pretty standalone character for the most part. Ellen Yen as a reoccurring foil then ally to Batman is really fun to see in this season. And Ethan Bennett pre-Clayface is a super interesting character because he actually looks at Batman as maybe a good guy before anyone else in the whole GCPD does. Overall, this is just a really fun show. The Batman, which ran from 2004 to 2007, is easily one of my favorite childhood cartoons that I look back at with so fondly. And it's just so stylish and fun to watch. Just looking at it is amazing. I'd never even mentioned the colored skies, which I love. And I also just really enjoyed going back through and watching this first season for this video. It was such a nostalgia trip, and it really showed me a side of Batman that we don't get to see very often, and I'm super intrigued by. I love when Batman is written a little younger and he hasn't fully lost everything inside yet. It's amazing to watch. And if you guys would be interested in seeing more on this show, I would love to cover it. Maybe the movie or the other 4 seasons, which get crazy as they go, by the way. Introducing Superman and the Bat family. The show kind of goes off the rails later on from what I remember. It's a ton of fun, so let me know in the comments below if you guys would be interested in that. But yeah, that's about it. Bye.